Ultra.
Goes huge for Ultra, and they get their first home series victory.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Made in Esports. I'm one of your hosts, Spencer. With me is Chris. As you guys know, Stage 4 for the CDL is coming up, and that, of course, means a brand new power rankings. Everybody's favorite thing to do. And yeah, honestly, there's a lot of very interesting changes. I mean, I was like kind of overwhelmed. I don't even know where to begin. There's like RosterMania 4.0, 5.0. At this point, I've lost track. A lot of new roster changes have been made. It's going to be the first time that we have seen LAN, obviously for the major, not during the group stages. And there's a new patch. There's potentially new maps. There's a whole bunch of...
I totally forgot about LAN.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of unknowns for this stage. Obviously, I'm just going to... At this point for the power rankings, I'm just going to rate it based on what I think the new rosters are going to look like and based on what we've seen in the online. I'm not going to, again, try to sit here and theorize which teams will improve on LAN and which teams won't, because that's just really difficult. At this point, let's just do the power rankings for the teams that we're used to seeing and how we think certain individuals are going to fit on certain rosters.
Yeah, exactly. And I suppose I think more. LAN's just for the major tournament, right? Where is it?
I actually don't know. I forget the exact city it's located in. I think it's actually Dallas, but I could be wrong. But yeah, obviously it's only for the major, not for the group stages. But with that being said, guys, again, like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Let us know your comments down below. Is this one of those things that you're excited to see? Which teams do you think are going to perform? Which teams do you not think are going to perform? And what rating annoyed you guys the most? Let us know down in the comments down below. And with that being said, let's just jump right into it. Number 12, Chris.
Number 12. Drum roll, please. I don't know why everybody knows what it is. Seattle. Okay, so I mean they added Classic.
Yeah, the Decimate benched himself for some reason, and then Classic
decimated his opportunity to be in the Call of Duty League.
Yeah, listen, great player too. He's obviously went to the Elite Series and has been able to perform there as well. I was very surprised, one, that the Seattle team didn't look better with him in the lineup, but also, two, that obviously that he benched himself. But again, I'm not going to... It's his decision at the end of the day. I don't fully agree with it, but regardless, that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about, obviously, Classic coming into the lineup and what that can potentially bring to this team.
Here's the thing. I think he's a decent player. I think he's adds consistency. But I don't think he's going to be coming in there and making any strides in terms of really raising them to a point where they can get into top 8.
That I kind of agree with. I do think he fits Pacini a little bit better. I think he can match the pace a little bit better. But I kind of agree. I don't know if he brings this team to the ceiling in which they can get that top 8, top 6, top 4 finish. Now, again, does he do enough to the point where if Pristini, Gunless, and Octane all elevate their game as well, can he be a little bit more consistent and match that pace a little bit better than Looney, like the Seattle we saw on stage 2? Then could they potentially elevate themselves? That is a better possibility, but to be honest, I'll believe it when I see it. And I do think you could have made an argument for them to be either 11th or 10th, but I don't see many people putting them much higher than that. And unfortunately, on this list, they find themselves at 12.
Yeah, that is very true. They definitely aren't real. I don't think they're going to be there and get into top 8 anytime soon. Next up, we're looking at Paris.
Yep.
And
they've introduced, again, obviously Classic left, and they brought in Zap. And Zaptius is a great player. He looked really good on London. London really started to hit their stride, and Zap was looking good on that team. So, obviously, they decided to make a change as well, which we'll get to a little bit later. But I think Zap's a good player. He was on the original Westar team. Looked really good with them. Obviously, I like the pace that he brings. And again, do I think that this Paris team has enough to get to top 8? I don't, but it's possible. They obviously got some talent, right? Yeah, Scraps has looked really good throughout the year. Obviously, Temp, when he finds his form, can look really good. I don't know if I love the fit of this team the way that it's currently constructed, and we'll see.
Yeah, hopefully he really fits. Hopefully he does fit in there a little bit better too. And I think next up, and this is a hard one. I think we had to really choose in between London and LAG here.
Yeah.
And I believe we went with LAG.
LAG, yeah. And hey, LAG's actually looked good. I'll be honest. I was surprised
Consider your expectations.
Considering your expectations, I generally thought this was going to be an easy 3-0 win for every team after the Vivid transaction. Like I did not think that was the right play by this team. I still think they've definitely struggled in terms of this lane department, and you've seen it at points. Silly on the SMG has looked like he struggled at points. Just the overall lane power, but the teamwork has obviously been there. I don't think they're an easy out by any stretch. They can try to get you on that like double search control, right? That's sort of where they're the best. And if they can find a little bit more consistency on the hard points, and they could be a little bit more of a dangerous team. I just personally on paper, I do like some of the acquisitions. London made a little bit more, and that's why I have LAG at 10.
I also think that like in terms of LAG, I think we definitely got to put our hats out to them for working with Cheen, given the circumstances in which he came on.
Yeah. Chino's looked good.
So he's looked a lot better than what we initially thought, and considering he had to come on, it's like they got him on with limited time left to really find a player. Kudos to them. And I think for LAG and London, their real goal here is simply to get into top 8. We're not going to expect any real tier jump, and I think with a team like LAG, that is definitely possible. Watching back to some of the games which were versus LAG in Florida, which is, let's be serious, is probably that one team that could be swapped out for top 8 if anybody.
Florida and Minnesota are both right in that range.
Florida or Minnesota, but I think in my idea more Florida. They had some close games against Florida. It wasn't total slap city. Even
LAG took that first map off of a very hot Optic team. An Optic team that went on a 3-0. Dallas, they went to 3-0. LA Thieves, I believe. Anyways, I forget who they 3-0'd. Doesn't matter. I think they won 6 straight after that in terms of their map count. So they took a map off there, that first map. Some of those, I think the search was really close. Like LAG, they've definitely impressed me. If they can keep that teamwork, and especially if they go to LAN. I mean, we know what that core was able to do on LAN in the 2018 champs for World War II, where they won the entire thing. Yeah. So if they're able to, recreate that magic, I wouldn't be surprised. It's just on paper, I just have a hard time putting them above. I think you could definitely argue they're above London, but I put London above because there's one man who I'm very, very excited to see finally play, and that is, of course, Afro. So you might as well just jump into why we have London here. They also...
Spencer, tell me why you're so high on Afro, considering he got dropped from Paris.
What are you talking about? Afro?
Yeah, tell me why you're so high on Afro.
Afro was not dropped from Paris. Who do you think?
Sorry, yeah, that's why I'm losing my brain part right here.
He wasn't. He's from tier 2. He wasn't dropped at all. He was in EU contenders. He's just had visa issues.
I'm thinking Fire.
You're thinking of somebody. Yeah, you're thinking of Fire.
I'm thinking of Fire. That's why.
You're not thinking of Afro. Yeah, sorry. Anyways, we're talking about Afro.
My brain's swearing here.
Yeah, we're talking about Afro, who's been tearing it up in the tier 2 scene in Europe. He was somebody who was on my radar going into the year. I had him in sort of that top 4, top 5, number 1 prospects to really watch out for. He's looked absolutely incredible whenever I've seen him play over EU contenders. And even though I haven't watched the most recent Challengers Cups, especially all through the beginning of the year, he was definitely named to watch. Again, what he was able to do on Team War last year as well. I think his movement's great. He's got a really good read for the map. This new mode of control has really helped because he was always great at search and he was pretty good at hard point, but I think control's been a highlight for him. So I think he comes in here and he can do a lot for this team. The one I'm a little bit more concerned about is bringing Alex back into the lineup. And it is weird that London seemingly hit their stride in that last major and then blew up 50% of their team. Yeah. Obviously, on one hand, I am glad to see Alex back in. He obviously left due to some personal reasons, and I'm not sure what that was. And it doesn't matter what that was. Like, I'm glad that whatever it was is ideally, knock on wood, figured out. I just don't know how much he's been playing since he left in stage 1. When we saw him in stage 1, I don't think he was lighting the world on fire. But again, there might have been some stuff behind the scenes. So I don't want to dock his performance too much. But my understanding is that he hasn't been playing a ton. And if he has, then good for him. But it's not like he was playing in challengers. On one hand, again, I like it, the fact that it is someone who stepped away due to personal reasons. And it's not like he tried to come back and the team's like, no, we're good. I'm glad that they at the very least were like, yeah, sure. Like, you had a spot before you left. We promised you a spot whenever you're ready to return. He was ready to return, so he got a spot back. So on one hand, I like the PR from the team. I just don't know how it's going to work when he actually goes up against the people who have been grinding this game day in and day out since the beginning. But I guess we'll see. Anyways, I'm very excited to see Afro play. In theory, this SMG lineup could work really well. And with Pollux and Shawnee, they could be a sneaky good team. I'm just not sure how it's going to look when it's actually put into practice. Yeah,
you know what? And my guess is that, hey, like I'm thinking, why would they bring Alex back on? Well, I guess is that maybe they trialed him out kind of behind the scenes, and he still is performing quite well. Maybe they think he's just going to be a good
Maybe.
fit because he did have some highs and lows before he kind
Yeah,
of left
he has some success. Even on Minnesota last year, right? And obviously, I know Alex has been playing longer than that, but Minnesota, like there was beginning of the year where they're looking like one of the best teams in the league and kind of fell off at the end. But he's been a staple for a long time. So hey, if it works, it's great. And again, I really think that this team is trying to find out who they can build around. I'm very excited to see how Afro and Paul X play. I think that's going to be super dynamic. So
Yeah, we definitely want to be able to create a good core. And I think next up is Florida.
yeah,
And I think that this is really the one team that really have to check their back right now and make sure that they become more consistent than they have been.
to be honest, I think you could put Minnesota in the same category. Like we definitely debated on whether or
Yeah,
not
of
we should
course.
put Florida and Minnesota here. I'm a pretty big Minnesota fan, so I mean that's one of the reasons I think I put my foot down a little bit and having them 7 and not 8. But I think there's definitely a world in which I could see Florida surpassing Minnesota, and there's definitely a world in which I could see somebody putting Minnesota ahead of Florida, especially based on how Minnesota performed at the most recent major.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's anybody's argument to be like, yo, Spencer Chris, what are you talking about? Minnesota did terribly in the last major. But I think we genuinely think that, with Major Maniac coming back,
I'm a fan of that. I think that improves the team.
yeah, we're going to see some hopefully big improvements, and especially in S&D, because this team at the start of the season was like, oh, wow, this is going to be one of the best S&D teams. And they were for a little bit, and then they dropped off. And I think with Major Mania coming back in, you're going to see some big improvements in S&D, but you aren't going to see necessarily a big drop-off in
the other
Respawn as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. S&D really is like a swing series, right? There's 2 S&Ds. It's a map 5. Like being a good S&D team can really elevate you, honestly, into contender status. They're a good team. They got some insane firepower. Obviously, when Awakening and Skies are firing on all cylinders, they're one of the best in the game. They've just been so inconsistent. And that's one of the problems. On one hand, they can go up there and shock and beat a team like LA Thieves, and then they drop 6 straight maps and are out of the tournament. So I really don't know which Florida I'm going to get. And I think on paper right now, Minnesota is better. You got that core from Faze last year, and then you're surrounding them with an S&D duo of Attach and Standy. And again, I understand the argument that maybe the fit between Attach and Standy isn't the best, but if they can figure that out, now with the that core Phase, Major Maniac, and Priesta running those ARs, I expect this team to have better pace. I expect them to fit a little bit better, and I expect their S&D to be better. And I'm very excited to see Major Maniac back in the league, especially the fact that he was like, screw it, I'm going to grind Tier 2, and he saw a ton of success, and he looked great while doing it. So he was winning in Tier 2, and I'm excited to see him back, and
Exactly.
I'm excited to see what this team can do.
Exactly. One last thought, too, is that I feel like Florida is somebody who is more consistent but may have a higher ceiling. I feel like you're probably seeing them do a little bit better week to week during group stages just because they have a little bit more time. But when you're in the actual major and you really have 3-4 games you have to win back to back in order to get to those spot, I just trust Minnesota a little bit more.
Also a team that I think LAN would play a part, right? I trust Major Maniac
Yeah.
and Priest a little bit more in LAN and Attach, obviously, than like Neptune and like Awakening in them. So we'll see. Anyways, they're both good teams. I could be totally wrong who's 7 and who's 8, but regardless, I don't have them 6, and that is LA Thieves. And this is like the most insane, I think, situation to see right now, that Huke was acquired for an insane amount of money. We've heard some insane numbers about how much was spent to acquire Huke, and he's been rebenched. So I'm not entirely sure what's going on with that. This could definitely be a team that maybe they can't find the form that they were seeing beforehand, and they could actually end up slipping to 7 or 8. I'm not entirely sure. With that being said, when these 4 were in the roster, Venom, TJ, Kenny, and Draza, they actually look pretty good. They actually won a lot of pretty good games. On paper, they still have some really good firepower. Maybe not to the same ceiling as they had when Huke was in the lineup. I also wouldn't be surprised to see if this team maybe starts to struggle again if they don't continually mix up this roster, and maybe you see like Huke come in for Venom. I'm a big Venom fan. I just want to preface by saying that. But I'm also aware of the fact that he might not be as explosive and also doesn't cost as much as Huke. So I do think that if you want this team to put their best 4 forward, it will include Huke. Regardless, with the 4 that we have in front of us, they're still a pretty good team. I still have them being 6. I still think Kenny's and Draws are fantastic on the ARs, and I still think TJ and Venom are a really good submachine gun duo. And even though I might have had them a little bit higher, if Huke was in that lineup, clearly the coaching staff knows more than I do, and I trust the coaching staff. They got some great analysts and coaches on that team, so I'm excited to see what they can do, and that's why I have them at 6.
Yeah, exactly. I think one other thing to say is that lots of people, their argument for not benching Huke is like, hey, he's only been on here for
A few weeks.
X number of weeks, right? But we gotta remember when Slasher got benched for Draza. Am I remembering this
Yeah.
correctly? When Slasher got benched for Draza, I believe we did see a decent
Improvement.
improvement in performance within a similar time period.
Well, again,
So
I
we know
think
it's possible.
yeah, you could argue that the best that this team has looked all year was with these four in the lineup. It was better than when Slasher and Temp were in the lineup, obviously. It was better than when Huke and Venom were your submachine gun duo. The
Yeah.
best that this team's looked all year was with these four, so I'm not surprised that they're going back to these four, and we'll see how it works. Let's jump right into number 5. This is actually this team is so hard to rank for me because I love the Vivid pickup by Dallas at number 5, and I really want to put them higher. The only reason they're not higher is because we just haven't seen them play. And it's hard to put them above teams like Optic, who just went on an insane run and has the talent to back it up, and put them above a team like Toronto, who was your stage champions in stage 2 and then went into stage 3 and went undefeated in group stages and went to a top 3 performance, losing 2 very close map 5s to Faze. And it's hard to put them ahead of NYSL, who went to the finals of the most recent stage after we were like, hey guys, this roster is disgusting. And then they showed everybody why that roster was disgusting. I will say, every stage, we've had a team to watch. And for the most part, I feel like we've been right almost every time. You know what I mean? We said New York going into stage 3, they absolutely popped off, they came second. We said Minnesota going into stage 2, they popped off and came 4th. Now Minnesota didn't hold it. And obviously Toronto would have been the pick for stage 2. But regardless, Minnesota had a very good stage 2 performance. I think the team to watch this stage is Dallas. Because Vivid is a phenomenal player. He's very much impressed me. I was very much nowhere near as high on him going into this year. He's looked like one of the best submachine guns in the game. And you put that pace alongside somebody like Shotzi, and I seriously think you're looking at what could be the best, I don't want to say the best, but one of the best submachine gun duos in the league. And we know a good submachine gun duo is like the number one, I think, correlator to his success. And you can finally get Illy back on that flex where he's most comfortable on. And if we can see a little bit more consistency out of Crim6, I seriously think like this team can win this entire stage, especially when it goes to LAN. Actually, maybe you could argue they'd be better online, but regardless, they have some talents who have won on LAN before. So this is going to be a team to watch.
Exactly. Beautiful rant, Spencer. I think what I will say, though, is that let's not pretend that their only core issue is just around Huke and Fellow and being in the roster. I do genuinely think that Illy has been underperforming. C6 has been, Crim6 has been inconsistent. So we still need to see improvements in performances from them.
I agree, but I will say Illy has looked
noticeably
noticeably worse than the submachine gun. Like that's the problem with Huke going out is it wasn't just a Huke for Fellow swap, right? It was like a Huke for Illy and then Illy for Fellow swap. And the team definitely looked worse because of it. This now allows Illy to go back into the AR role where maybe he's a little bit more comfortable. And I do think that you can see some noticeable improvement, especially if there was some issues with Huke and Shotzi in stage 2. Maybe they weren't making the right plays. Vivid's going to put a ton of pace on, and he's going to play the right way, I think. So I'm very excited to see how they're able to perform.
Exactly. And I think next up is Chicago Optic.
Yeah.
And if they didn't have such a sick run in
that would have had them at 5 or 6, yeah. 5.
Stage 3, we definitely would have had them lower. And also if they didn't have such a star-studded roster. Let's get serious. They had a bad stage in groups. But, that's kind of more of a hiccup.
The losers run didn't surprise me at all, right? The losers run of Toronto in stage 2 surprised me when they won the entire thing. The losers run of, Minnesota to get top 4, I knew was possible, but was a little bit surprising. Optic going on that run wasn't surprising at all. This team always had the talent on paper. You've seen them when they reach their highs. They can beat any team in the league. This is definitely going to be a team to watch, especially if it goes to LAN. Optic's going nowhere. They've stopped streaming on their scrims, and maybe that's helped them, kind of focus a little bit more and improve some strats. I don't know what it was, but they looked incredible. They barely lost that map to Toronto, right? They could have got top 3, and who knows? They would have beat Toronto. Maybe they beat FaZe as well. I can't put them any lower than 4, and again, this is another team that once this goes to LAN, I could easily see them win this entire thing.
Exactly. I think those guys are LAN stars for sure, especially somebody like...
Scomp, Form, the whole team.
Yeah.
Whole team.
And the next two are Toronto and NYSL. We put NYSL third and Toronto at second, and obviously you guys know that LAN's going to be at first. But I think that some people may argue that NYSL may or may not be second but I think overall Toronto is just a
Yeah.
little more consistent.
I
At this
actually
point.
totally disagree. I understand why you might put New York at number 2 because they just came second, but I just think that's objectively not the right play. Like New York literally didn't play Toronto, so we actually did that whole stage. So we've never seen how they went head to head. So in terms of matchups, definitely play a thing. And Toronto just lost 2 very close map 5s to Atlanta Faze. And I know that New York beat Atlanta Faze, but I never liked that. Like, well, New York beat Faze and Faze beat Toronto, and therefore New York's better than like that's never how it works, right? It's called like MMA match. Like it's not a thing. And I just think you're right. Like Toronto won stage 2. It was incredibly competitive in stage 3. New York had a struggle in stage 2 and looked really, really good in stage 3, but I just don't know how they're going to perform in stage 4. And kind of like Minnesota, right, who had a great stage 2 and kind of fell off, that possibility is there. Now, do I think it's going to happen? No. I love this roster. I think this roster is incredibly talented. I think they could easily win, once it goes to land. I think they can win the whole thing. They're definitely in that conversation, but I think just from consistency, Toronto's been one of the 3 best teams in the league for 2 stages, and New York's been one of the 3 best teams in the league with this roster for 1 stage, and that's why I have Toronto at 2 and New York at 3. Both incredibly talented teams, and I can't wait to see them play each other.
Now, just one little note on something like LAN. I think that LAN does bring a little bit of an X factor in terms of if you have more experience in LAN, I feel like you may have less of those in LAN performance jitters, with that crowd, everybody cheering you on. And I will say there is a difference in NYSL and Chicago Optic. I just genuinely do think that Chicago Optic are more seasoned LAN players. They mix a little bit more.
Yeah, but I think you could also argue New York's more seasoned than Toronto, right? Like I think if we were ranking these,
I'm not. Definitely, Toronto's definitely in that conversation too.
Yeah, if we were ranking these based on how we think they're going to perform in LAN, I mean Toronto has some pretty good LAN performance. Obviously, Vance has won a chip on LAN, and Insight and CleanX had that huge run. Cammy, I actually haven't watched any VODs of him on LAN. Fun facts. There's some concern that Toronto might not be able to perform on LAN. I'm not one of those people. I think they're going to be fine. But I kind of would maybe see your logic because they're not like scum performable. But yeah,
I don't think that there is going to be any tier break or shift in between maybe a spot or maybe.
Yeah. If Toronto dropped out of the top 5, I'd be surprised. Maybe top 6. Maybe like LA Thieves get really hot with this new roster, but I still think Toronto's just better. But again, if Toronto came 5th and the teams that were ahead of them was like a new Dallas that looks incredible, and then like Optic and New York, then like it is what it is.
Yeah.
But I don't see there being much shift between these top 5, in my personal opinion.
Yeah. And then last one. I mean, Faze.
Yeah, it's Faze. They're the best team. They've been the best team in the game.
They're best. Like, what do you guys expect?
Yeah, they're the 4th best players.
If you argue against this,
no one's arguing. As
everybody would say, Fugaze.
Yeah, you're shocked. But regardless, like I just don't know how much to add. Like they're stacked from the AR position. I know there was a moment where people were hating on RCs for some reason that they just forgot that he's one of the best ARs in the game. Celium can turn it up. They're well rounded in every single game mode. They can do it all, and
that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
No more.
I got
no more talking.
All right,
you guys have anything else to add? If you disagree with us, and also give us your thought on Minnesota versus Florida. Give us your thoughts on where Dallas could be. Like, I really want to hear from you guys.
Yeah, who's your team to watch? If there's one team that's going to surprise, did I miss somebody? Is LA Thieves going to be the team to win it all? Is Florida going to go on a magical run? Is Africa going to carry London to the promised land? Let us know your thoughts down below. Thank you for watching, and as always, guys, enjoy.